Cool. Thanks for letting you guys meet.
Okay, why don't we get started if we can. Let me introduce myself because some of you may not know me. I'm Mark Daskin. I'm the chair of the department. I want to welcome everybody here, particularly Chakor and his family and friends, many of whom have traveled from far away to be with us today. So I'm just going to take a minute or two to introduce Chakor. Many of you undoubtedly know him far better than I do, but let me just say a few words about him. He received his master's degree in operations research and industrial engineering from the department, and then he returned back to India. This is more flashes going off, and all right. I feel like I should have Angelina Jolie next to me or something. Then there'd be a reason for all these flashes. Anyway, he then returned back to India to help advance his family's group of companies. The companies are Walsh and Nagar Industries Limited, and he grew them from a small engineering company into about a $200 million engineering and manufacturing conglomerate. The company's clients include firms in the aerospace industry and nuclear power, defense and energy. The company built the largest optical telescope in India. It helped build critical components for nuclear submarines, the first Indian nuclear submarine for nuclear reactors, and major components of a satellite that India has launched as well. So with that, I want to introduce Chakor and thank him very much for being with us today, and we look forward to your talk and then to dinner this evening. Thank you.
This is an opportunity for me to take revenge on all these professors. Thank you, Mark, and thank you all of you for being here. It's a great honor for me. It's a joy for me to be back here in Ann Arbor. I've been here many times since I left in '72, but this is completely special, and I'm really grateful for...
Close the screen, please. The laptop.
Oh.
I'm sorry, the screen behind you is distracting.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And this one's decidedly special. I don't know what I can ever even attempt to say to a gathering like this are the people from whom I learned all that I know, at least all that I began my working career with. So I'm really not going to even try on that path. But what I can do is share with you what is it that has challenged me, what has brought a lot of joy to me in the last 40 years of my life, what has brought often tears to me, frustration, and high levels of wondering about what is all this running a business about. And it's really, really something, and above all, in a country like India. And that itself is a topic you could have a bachelor's degree on for 4 years. So let me start with sharing with you as to what did I go back with from here. I went back with not just a degree, but an amazing ability and a methodology of how to think about things. And that's, if somebody asked me to say, what did you take back that you used in your working career? I would say that's what I took back from here. The way I learned the ways how to think about things that are before you. How to dissect it, how to visualize it, how to extend it into various parameters that make that situation, and then taking all of those things into account, develop a solution model. Call it a mathematical model, call it a whatever, working model. But it's that ability that has really been the single most important thing that I have taken back from University of Michigan. The smaller things like, relatively smaller things like theories, various theories, queuing theories and inventory theories, and how to use the computer from 360 to 370. I mean, there were no PCs those days, leave aside the laptops and the tabs and all that. But how to use a computer, and that was a life-changing invention. I took that back too, and we in our group, which was, if you look back, India of the late 60s, early 70s, was very, very, I'm for want of a better word, I'm going to say backward. And in that time, we were with the card readers and so on. I did start for our group data processing, if you please, and then came the computers and so on. So yes, some of these things I did use, but then the technology moved so fast thereafter, and the educated, specialized in those fields came into play, and it was necessary to leave it to the specialists. I was in general management, and therefore, looking back over the 40 years, first 20 of which were struggling in the so-called backward stranglehold on the industry through regulation by the government and so on. That era, and then the last 20 years after liberalization, there is much removal of that stranglehold. Regulation is much less, and yet we all know regulation is a necessary part of any society that works interactively. And so to that extent, there maybe some more rationalization is required. But that 20 years, the second 20 years, is the part that coincided with my own way of thinking. And I'll come back to this point in a few minutes. So it is in this manner that I got into the business, and as luck would have it, I got reluctantly taken into this company as an executive. Actually, my family had planned that I be in another company, which was a sugar mill, and one of my cousins, who was the guardian of that, hummed and hawed on that idea for like 4 months. And then his older brother, who had actually thought of that idea, finally one day got fed up with his younger brother, and he says, to hell with him, Chakor, you come and work with me. So it is in that manner that I got into Valchandra. Thank God my cousin hummed and hawed, because the best thing that happened to me was to get into Valchandra Industries. And I've never, after that, done anything. And as luck would have it, in 1983-84, that company, sugar mill, was given to me. I was made the guardian of that, so I did run it for two years. But it was a large family group that had, it was really large. It was considered fifth largest in the country, Tatas, Birlas, and one, two others. And we were in a wide section from infrastructure, civil engineering, to making pipes, to aircraft building, ship building, merchant shipping, heavy engineering, diesel engines, sugar mills, confectionery, all kinds of things, other than textiles. For some reason, this group never got into textiles. We also owned, which is part of Air India, the other half, Indian Airlines, was also Indian Airlines was formed by putting three of the companies together, one of which was also part of this group. Now, this is the kind of activity was there, and we were about like 6 cousins that were owners and managers actively. So the first 20 years, approximately, I'm talking about 18 years, and then second 18 years. The first 18 years went in this environment, but I had made up my mind back in 86, 87, that my company I'm going to professionalize. Because I had formed an opinion that there are other people that are professionals that can do this job better than I can do. And I was beginning to say this after having played that role for 12 years myself. And I had no threat of being removed because we were owners, although the company was listed on the stock exchange and is for the last 80 years. When the family decided to separate. So this group is no longer, and back in 93, the family separated. And the various companies went to different owners, members, and Walchand Nagar, where I was working for then 20 years, came to my share, and some financial balancing was done. Within that separation, within 3 weeks, I resigned as the managing director of the company, because 2 years prior to that, I had brought a professional into the company to be, and we worked together till he got all the reins, and things are complicated in India and running this kind of business. And so I did practice what I had come to believe, that we can remain owners, but companies must be run by the most appropriate and fit individuals that can, and there are many available. And so that move I actually made. I resigned. I have not held an executive position ever since then in my company. I do continue to be chairman of the board. And so being an owner, one is constantly thinking about it and is available for the management, but I do not interfere at all. Setting up the vision and all those things are standard things that we do, but otherwise it is a professionally run company. And I shared with him my philosophy, which is the same philosophy I continued on with my children. And I said to them that by virtue of the fact that I'm owner and you are owner's children, you will own the company, but you don't have the right to manage the company unless you actually prove that you have the competence and the conviction to justify that role. Otherwise, it will be run by professional management. This continues to be the picture as it stands. So now my life for the last 18 years has been this company and a few other things that we have done, and I'd like to share with you what we do. In a nutshell, we are a high-tech, heavy engineering company And the high-tech end covers, we do heavy engineering, core equipment for nuclear power stations. We do hardware, the rocket bodies for all the rockets that India sends up for satellite launch vehicles. Typically, as all over the world, these are also missiles. They're capable of doing the same thing. We do make missiles themselves. We do missile launchers. We do, for the defense, certain all-terrain bridges, portable bridges, and stuff like that. Then we did a optical telescope back in '84, which was the third largest optical telescope in the world, the largest being in Los Angeles somewhere, another in Russia. And all of Europe did not have one, and India put it together. Of course, much has changed since then, and electron are now much better, and so on. We also do industrial products, and that is, we do plant and equipment on turnkey or otherwise for cement industry, sugar industry, paper industry, fertilizer industry, bulk material handling, coal handling, washeries. We do gearboxes, industrial and naval gearboxes. So in the last 40 years, 45 years, practically 80% of the naval ships built in India have our propulsion gearboxes, including the nuclear submarine that India has launched, has our propulsion gearbox. Then these submarines have, missile launchers for in there. We do those, and so on. So I have a corporate video that will give you glimpses of this. It's about 5-6 minutes if you.
October 22nd, 2008. Chandrayaan-1, India's first spacecraft mission to the moon, marked a major technological leap for the country. Many critical components for the launch vehicle of this high-tech mission were manufactured by one of India's foremost heavy engineering companies. Walchand Nagar Industries Limited, a continuing legacy of engineering for tomorrow. Walchand Nagar Industries has been associated with the Indian Space Research Organization since its inception and was the first Indian company to manufacture critical components for their Polar satellite launch vehicle. Again, the first in India to manufacture all the critical core equipment for nuclear power plants. The first to manufacture main gearboxes for the Indian Navy frigates and corvette class ships. Also manufacturing the largest optical telescope in India. Following the legacy of Seth Walchand Hirachand, a visionary industrialist who founded some of the key industries in pre-independent India. Pioneer in aircraft manufacturing, maritime shipping, shipbuilding, automobiles, construction of dams, bridges, tunnels, hume pipes, power projects, heavy engineering and manufacturing of industrial machinery and plants. Walchand Nagar, once a barren land in rural Maharashtra, has transformed into a role model industrial township. A special engineering zone with a conducive environment designed for comfortable living, working and learning. Today, Walchand Nagar Industries is a diversified, high-tech heavy engineering and project execution company, recognized as a preferred supplier to a wide spectrum of industries around the world. high-pressure boilers for steam and power generation, turnkey independent power projects, the first in India to execute an independent power project based on municipal solid waste, cement machinery and turnkey cement plants. The first company from India to export a complete cement plant with the largest kiln ever manufactured in India. The complete range of sugar machinery and turnkey sugar plants. Walchand Nagar was the first company to build an indigenous sugar plant and first to export sugar machinery and a complete sugar project from India. Specialized equipment for nuclear power plants. A wide range of defense equipment and critical components for aerospace. At Walchand Nagar, future needs take shape on computer screens. Establishing design and development departments dedicated to core industrial sectors. The latest systems and software enable critical thermal and mechanical design, finite analysis, and 3D modeling and simulation, which are then integrated with computer-aided manufacturing. The manufacturing facilities are developed on par with the best in the world and in compliance with all national and international codes. Heavy lifting of single-piece equipment weighing up to 125 metric tons. One of the largest horizontal lathes and vertical boring machines installed in Asia. And a series of large CNC vertical boring machines. Dedicated zones for exclusive manufacture of technology-intensive components for nuclear power, aerospace and defense projects. Special zones for boiler manufacturing, cement machinery division, sugar plant machinery division, and a gear division for heavy-duty industrial and marine gears, equipped with the latest high-precision CNC gear grinding station. Large dust-free halls for critical assembly and precision welding. Multiple heat treatment furnaces to meet the demanding requirements of critical and large-sized products. Mastering multiple technologies for welding, developing special fixtures for high accuracy and distortion-free welding. Walchand Nagar has put into place specialized systems and practices for quality management, conforming to international codes as well as meeting customers' stringent specifications. Enclosed areas for X-ray radiography. A specially created underground testing pit for high pressure and strain gauge testing. Developing unique capabilities in project management, driven by a team of experienced professionals, providing total solutions through EPC projects for mineral processing, petrochemicals, oil and gas and other industrial sectors. Constantly updating know-how through global technology partnerships. Globally, Walchand Nagar is expanding its footprint in countries across South Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Europe and the Americas. Walchand Nagar's continuous high performance has been recognized by the Indian government's awards for technology absorption and export performances. Today, Walchand Nagar epitomizes the spirit of a progressive India. A self-supporting township that offers quality education and advanced healthcare. The school recognized for its academic excellence and a hospital with all modern facilities. Nurturing young talents in sports with facilities that are comparable with the best in urban India. Pioneering a tradition of community welfare. Providing free education for rural people since 1934. Initiatives for sustainable development of the poor through adult literacy and self-employment schemes. Creating excellence in harmonious living and teamwork at the workplace. An empowered team constantly striving to exceed expectations of customers and stakeholders. For Walcher Nagar Industries Limited, it's a continuous mission of engineering the future of industry and society.
Mark, I'm open for any questions if anybody has. Otherwise, it's been nice sharing this with you. Yeah, Steve.
Okay, so you made a point of saying that you don't try to interfere with management now. You're just you're sort of a high-level advisor, as it were, and overseer, not overseer, but you provided a vision. Okay. Do you have any particular preferences when you work with your managers, you meet with them? They talk about hiring people for specific things, whether it's hard engineering or maybe it's for logistics planning and so on. Do they have any constraints upon where they look for people? Do they tend to stay within India? Do they look to China, Japan, the United States?
We don't have any constraints. My requirement, which has been adequately expressed, is that you must find not necessarily best, but appropriate. You can't only have stars in an organization. You have to have followers. And so make sure that you're clear about what is the role and find an appropriate person. And second thing is, you must find such a person who wants to be in that role. And that's often something that we need to go deep into to understand. Everybody thinks they want to play that role, but I'm not sure all people who express that really know that for sure. So the challenge is on the recruiter to really understand whether what he is expressing is how much can you really also understand about a person in maybe 2 sessions or whatever. But within those limits, these are the 2 parameters that I have given. Otherwise, it can be anybody from anywhere. But there is another thing. This place is located in the middle of nowhere in India. I mean, it's in as rural India can ever get. So it's in the middle of somewhere. That's because this company originally started as a sugar mill, and it needed farms and it needed irrigated lands, and so that's in rural India. Now, as it has kind of expanded itself into technology and then high-end technology, you have to find appropriate people. And at the same time, you cannot simply import them from even within the country from other parts of the country. Because local people see some prosperity taking place and they want it to be a part of that. Also, from company's point of view, having local people has many advantages. Proximity, travel costs, so many things are there. And so we do give it a preference, but within small tolerances. We will not bend it too much just to accommodate a local person. With that, India has, as you know, 27 odd states, and every state has its own language and so on. So the language starts becoming an issue. So having people either who know that language or have the ability to deal with people not understanding their language, and many people have that ability, it starts becoming an important criteria. So these features do come into play, depending. If you want a shop floor supervisor or an engineer guiding the supervisors, now for him to be able to be understood is so critical. So some preferences do come. But you know what? We have people from all over the country. We haven't had too many foreigners thus far, but I have advocated bringing people at top level because there's much Germany, Japan, England, America to offer in that context.
I'm curious about the educational component that you touched on. Obviously you have a training mission as part of the organization. But how formal is that? Is that very specialized for certain aspects of the company, or do you take it on as more of an educational role as opposed to a training for specific skills?
Yeah, we do all of the three. That is an educational role. That is because, like I said, this is in the middle of nowhere. For example, we don't have a police station within 20 kilometers radius. We have a police outpost that's 7 kilometers away. So we have to have our own security. This is our own township. We own some 500-700 acres and housing and all of that. So security has to be provided. So we have our own security force of 180. Now, all these people, plus the shopkeepers, plus so on, they have children. Now, their education needs. There are no other school within 10-20 kilometers. So we built schools from back in 30s. And we've improved them and tried to keep pace with the urban education systems like computers as time has gone by. So the education angle is the primary angle. As far as training is concerned, it is like HR related as much as required, but we have not built any real high-level training institute. For that we will use outside resources. But within our middle and lower middle management, shop floor and engineering related things will do there. Now comes the welding, and that angle in this business is the most critical technique. So we do our own welding development and specialized training in-house, wherein we train more people than we are able to absorb, and then the balance will go find jobs elsewhere. And so in that context, we have been a supplier to the rest of the industry. But that's so critical that we cannot take a step back from that.
You know, I would like to know how high-level decisions are made at the company.
As far as I'm concerned, I wait for it to come to me one night. And next day, really, I tell you, it's been amazing. You think about a problem long enough and repeatedly and intensely, something will come. So that's as far as I'm concerned. And that's the reason I said there are more professional people better to handle the day-to-day issues than me. And I acted on that. Now, I think to get an insight into that, Professor Murthy, some discussions with them will be better than me trying to guess and share with you. I backed off from that role.
I have two questions. One is, what's been, having grown some businesses myself, what's been the biggest challenges in trying to grow a business, that you found? And the other, there may be a related question, but is there any problems with being in India with the government? Do you have constraints that you are different than we have here in the United States that you have to deal with?
Yeah. The first question as to what is the biggest challenge I found. I failed, and I couldn't understand why am I failing. Looking back, after some time, I realized I failed because I had not balanced the desire to grow and the ability to grow. That was the mistake I made. And that's truly the challenge. At the same time, now, the first half, as I described, 18, 20 years, the opportunity to grow was so limited in India. And yet, if you followed the means, I can show you a number of companies that have grown phenomenally even during that period. So that was a different scene. Now the era that's going on for the last 18 years or 20 years, the opportunity to grow is phenomenal. And it is there. So now the challenge slightly changes to how fast can you gear yourself up to take advantage of that. And the challenge remaining the same, just the weightage is gone more towards something that you can do rather than something that was opportunity itself was not there, and therefore my desire to grow more was perhaps not the right target to set for myself.
Following that,
The other question, government, are there government constraints that are different than we have here?
Lots of them. Lots of them. Back in 80s, mid 80s, some Indian, what are called non-resident Indians, who had gone to, say, America or Spain or England and so on, and had done well for themselves, worked hard and done well. And then they began to talk about how they understand management, and that Indian businesses were not managed efficiently. And they tried to raid and hostile takeovers of some companies. The real challenge that was the reason they backed off, and it was a fight for 2-3 years, is when openly the Indian business community came out and said to them, if you think you're so good in management and that we are not, why don't you come here and start a business and show us how to do it, rather than get into this hostile takeover business. And I think that is the essence of the description of the challenges that happen in India. It's just impossible. And then now, 18-20 years of liberalization, rationalization, all that, one single window, famous political line is single window approvals. It only means single window at a time. It's a load of rubbish.
So,
of course, much better now than it was before.
So I have a short question for you. From a perspective of, say, a managing director, when you look at a project, do you have a short-term view for the company? Do you take a very short-term view about how long this project will be with you? Or if you want to take any decision in the company, but do you have a very long-term view? One of the things you find in the United States is that they have a 3-month horizon. And so things are not, we see the next bottom line 3 months later, otherwise the stockholders are going to come and crowd us. So does the Indian industrialist also work in short horizon, very short-term horizons, which then leads to outsourcing and all kinds of crazy things in the economy?
This may be different for different industries. If you're in a service industry or similar things may be different, and maybe that may be more applicable to that. But when you're in an industry like this, any one single order, the smallest orders for say a gearbox, it physically takes 14 months to make it. If you want to put up a sugar factory, it will take not less than 16 months, 18 months, depending on the size of it. So there is no way to look at it in a 3-month perspective. So, am I bothered about what my shareholders are going to say? Of course I am. But then I have to take a look at my total balance sheet, which is constituted by the profit and losses made by, let's say, 76 different orders that are going on at the same time, and take a view on that.
But if you take the light industry part, not the heavy industry part, would there be pressures to outsource? Or are there pressures to outsource?
Costs are going up, even in India. But so we do subcontract some of the low technology work to outside outsourcing it, because his costs, that fellow, small, low overhead, whatever you want. But you know, all this has got to rationalize one day. This is all right. History had taught us to do that. But how can he go on living at a lower standard of living than where my managing director or my chief of production lives? I mean, it can't be, not for long. There'll be some bandwidth, but not for too long. So I think the answer lies in us ourselves, constantly keeping our costs within the affordable. But you know, free enterprise will always bring competition, and it'll always show you, hey, you've been sleeping. Sorry, Mary.
So I have a long-term question to balance you out. I was wondering about your relationship to the international community. Do you export a lot? You obviously have partnerships with a lot of countries in different parts of the world. And can you give us a little insight on what that's been like? And also, do you have relationships with China, Chinese businesses, and what that might be like?
Yeah. You know, in this company, we've had relationship with the rest of the world for 50 years. Back initially, you know, company like Skoda from Czechoslovakia then. But it was all technology purchasing and licensing and absorption, and then start making things ourselves, and then design, and then extrapolate it or freshly design and make the larger. So that relationship has been there, and we've had relationships with Canadians, Americans, British, Germans a lot, Swiss, Czech, Japanese on this side. So we know we are quite at ease with doing business or any other negotiations with these countries. Africa has been our main thrust area for setting up plants over there. Mostly East Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia. Then South Africa we did some work, Nigeria we did some work. And then Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and the like. The developed world, we have not actually gone and installed equipment, because the developed world was developed and it already had everything. Actually, if you look at last 20 years, there's hardly any addition of hardware that has happened in these countries, including nuclear power. So it's all in the emerging and there is a middle zone countries. So we do see a role for us and that is why I dared to call this talk Indian engineering industry a emerging force to reckon with. I mean, it was a bit provocative to say force to reckon with. I meant really emerging opportunity. Because really, I mean, look at China, and you said China. We don't have any relationship with China except buy some stuff because they give it to you at costs lower than the raw material. I mean, how do you do that? You know, I don't know. And all the pundits of the world are not able to put their finger on it. But what is emerging clearly is people are uncomfortable working in China. I mean, okay, if you're McDonald's or if you're, you know, General Electric or something, that's okay. But then there is a whole host of other businesses that would like to get the advantage of China. But they're finding that legal situation is very uncomfortable, to say the mildest form, as I've heard. IPR issues are serious issues. And then the banking NPAs, I don't know if anybody in the world knows what that is. So somewhere this is becoming an English language, which of course slowly will improve. There's no doubt about it. On these accounts, India is the next best. Because, and lastly, sorry, China has some very high-tech capabilities, but I'm not sure those are readily available for international use. Whereas in India, I can do a job for anybody. It doesn't have to, I don't have to take anybody's permissions. So this opportunity is there. If you go to Japan or Germany or France, they will not necessarily do the high-tech end stuff. And of course, if they do it, it'll be at a cost that mostly people can't bear. So in this context, India has English, no problem. Legal system is very strong. So IPR and all other protections are very good. We have the abilities, we have the facilities, and we have the desire to want to do this. That's why it's an emerging opportunity. Did I cover it up?
Yes, I was just going to say that I'm really intrigued by a model that I think you have, with that is rather unique in that you have that kind of focus on the local, working with the local community and building community there within the industry. And I wonder if you could just say a few words about that, if you see that kind of model in other parts of the world, because I think that that's unique and maybe something that would also make your work attractive to other, or your model attractive to other places.
I have not really done a study to be speaking authoritatively about what has happened in other parts of the world. But one has heard that Japan has done a lot in that field. And if you ask me, whatever exposure I've had of America in the last 40 years, I think America has done a lot. Maybe not saying so, but the communities around have gained a lot. I'm not sure in that same spirit, say England or South Africa or some of these countries have actually done that. But I won't say more than that because I have not studied it.
Sort of following up on the educational aspect. In the United States, we're very concerned about STEM, as we call it, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. From really the beginning of education all the way through K to 12 and on up into higher education. Another statistic, there's only about 4% of the workforce have engineering degrees, for instance, in the United States. India just closed, I think it was 2,000 engineering schools around the country.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about the same thing? You're just not going to have the talent that you need from your schools.
Largely, if we sit to do numbers and analysis, this is what will emerge. And at the same time, there are unemployed people, graduates that are unemployed. So how can both be a reality? So, like I said, I haven't really gone into this aspect of it, that do we have enough younger people getting educated and coming out as required by the industry. And it seems to me that yes, because as long as there is a unemployment there, that means there's enough coming out.
Unemployment in the tech field, so.
Yeah. Oh, there are any number of engineers, particularly engineers. Maybe software engineers, there is still a shortage of, maybe because that field has expanded. Unbelievable exponential curve. But mechanical, electrical, instrumentation, civil engineering, plenty of unemployment.
So I have one other question. What's your long-term vision for the company? Are there industries you'd like to see the company move into that you're not involved in heavily now? Directions you'd like to go?
I want to, stick to your knitting is a mantra that I have heard all my life. And at the same time, I see all these diversified, General Electrics to a variety of other companies. So I've been thinking about this myself. What I want to say is I want to be a manufacturing expert and related activities, and that expands my horizons. That is projects. But I don't want to be pure EPC contractor that does nothing except sets the parameters and gets everything done from project manage and so on. That's not the EPC I'm thinking. My vision says, no, be in the EPC, but with manufacturing ourselves. It's something we must have in addition to just management of that contract or the project. So I want to expand on those lines. So I will not go and take a project to build an airport or a monorail in a metro. I won't do that because there's nothing of that we manufacture ourselves. But would I like to do something in oil and gas? Yes, because I can actually manufacture the equipments, albeit to somebody else's designs if I don't have the design capability, but I have manufactured. My entire nuclear business, what we call the DNA of company, defense, nuclear, aerospace, was not our designs. The scientists gave us the designs of what equipment they wanted. And what is our contribution is manufacturing engineering, including materials and handling of those. There are quite a lot of materials that are non-standard. I mean, they're high, this thing. So I would like to do that. And the vision I want to take this company, and as I said to you, the current potential in this country is really high. I mean, we talked about 200 million. I explained to you that part of it is that 200 million is not great. I mean, what is it? But by world standards, nothing. But that's partly low because we often get from, in this DNA areas, the customer giving us free materials. So all our billing is only add value. And therefore there's a 70% missing. And 30% is all the turnover looks out at. Similarly, such projects, if we did in the developed world or anywhere else in the world, it would be billed at 2 to 3 times that of what is done in India. So these opportunities are there, plus really within India, and I will count exports at 20 to 35% of the turnover mix. I think we can quadruple our business in 3 years to 4 years. There's that kind of potential available if the government would either leave us alone or go to sleep.
On the manufacturing, since that's your key focus. In the United States, we're down to now less than 9% of our GDP is in manufacturing. What is it in India?
In India, how much is it?
Yeah.
I think it's 30%. And that is come down from maybe 42% because the service industry has shot up in the last decade and a half. So the percentages are all relative to all these things.
What Germany is, right?
Yeah. In Germany, you take away automobiles, and I don't know what it's going to be. That country has been just amazing. And all high value products.
Right.
They are not in the Daihatsu or some, Indian Maruti or something like that. Mercedes, Porsche, BMW, Audi, and Volkswagen being the lowest value out of all of them. And rocking. So,
Okay, I want to maybe take this opportunity to thank Chakor again.
Thank you, sir.
Great having
Let me tell you, I have never been able to express my joy of getting this opportunity to be here. And talk to people from whom I learned nearly everything that I know, and including Pete Cherry. No, that's because Pete was part student then, and we all looked up to him as the senior most student, and Professor Pollock and Murty, and then there were some real terrific ones, Seth Bonder, Disney, even Ken Baker's short stint, I remember, was brilliant. Chafin, Professor Hancock, brilliant, brilliant. So this, to me, is unbelievable opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.